Welcome back, everyone, to the Deep Dive. Today we are going to, we're diving into the world of aesthetic implants and specifically how this market is expected to look in 2025.
All right, sounds good.
I've been looking at this pretty detailed report, and one of the biggest takeaways right off the bat is that the global market is expected to reach a huge USD 14.62 billion in 2025.
Wow, that's a big number.
Yeah. And it doesn't stop there. By 2033, it's projected to almost double to hit USD 29.56 billion. That's a compound annual growth rate of 9.20%. So yeah, this market is really on the move.
9.20%. That's pretty impressive growth. I mean, that's sustained growth over almost a decade. What's driving that?
It's a great question, and this report really digs into it. It looks at different regions, all kinds of different product types, materials they're using, even breaks it down by gender and the different end users. It's pretty comprehensive.
All right, so we're talking about a pretty comprehensive overview of this market.
Yeah. So let's jump right in. First off, I got to ask, to get to that initial $14.62 billion figure for 2025, what time frame is the report actually looking at?
Right, so to make these projections, they use 2024 as the baseline. And they look at historical data going back to 2021 up to 2024. So they're basically analyzing all the trends, leading up to that point to kind of project out what's going to happen. And then they're estimating for 2025 and then forecasting all the way out to 2033.
Okay, so a good mix of historical data and then forecasting from there. Makes sense.
Yeah.
So from a regional standpoint, where's most of this activity happening?
Well, in 2025, North America is expected to hold the largest market share, over 37% of the global revenue. And their market size, it's estimated to be USD 5.41 billion. But their projected CAGR from 2025 to 2033 is a bit lower. It's about 7.6%.
Okay, so over a third of the market, that's a pretty dominant position. What about Europe?
Europe is also significant. They hold over 29% global revenue, and their market size in 2025 is estimated to be USD 4.24 billion.
Gotcha. So North America leading, but Europe not far behind. Where's the most rapid growth, though?
That would be Asia Pacific. They're holding about 24% of the global market share right now, and their size in 2025 is projected to be USD 3.51 billion, but their CAGR, it's the highest, 12% from 2025 to 2033.
Wow, 12%. That's really significant. Sounds like things could look pretty different in a few years if that keeps up. What about other areas like South America, Middle East, Africa? What are we seeing there?
Yeah, so South America is estimated at USD 555.56 million in 2025, CGR of 9.9%. Middle East, similar, around 4% market share, USD 584.80 million market size, and a CGR of 10.5%. And then Africa, it's a bit smaller, 2.20% market share with a market size of USD 321.64 million in 2025. And they're projected to have a CAGR of about 9.5%.
Okay, so while those markets are a bit smaller now, they're still growing at a pretty healthy rate.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we talked about the regions. What about what's driving this whole expansion? What's the report saying about that?
Well, there's a few things. First, there's this rising demand for cosmetic procedures globally. People are placing more emphasis on appearance and well-being. Social media is playing a big role, kind of shaping beauty standards. And, disposable income is increasing in many parts of the world, so that's making these procedures more accessible.
Yeah, social media definitely seems to be amplifying a lot of these trends, making people more aware of, different procedures, different options. What else is driving this growth?
Another big factor is advancements in implant materials themselves. We're seeing constant innovation, silicone gel, cohesive gel, and then even 3D printed custom implants are starting to emerge. And these advancements are, making these implants safer, they're lasting longer, and they're making the aesthetic outcomes much better. So it's making these procedures more appealing to a wider range of people.
Yeah, I mean, 3D printed custom implants, that's pretty amazing. It's like personalized medicine for aesthetics. What's the third big driver that the report mentions?
Well, they also point to the growing number of reconstructive surgeries. So that includes things like, post-mastectomy breast reconstruction, which is becoming more common, and, corrections for various facial deformities. So these medical needs, they're actually contributing quite a bit to the volume and growth of this market.
Right. So it's not just about cosmetic enhancements. There's also a pretty big medical need driving this. So let's break down the market a little bit by product. What's the outlook looking like there?
Well, breast implants are expected to remain the dominant segment. And this is driven by, both cosmetic breast augmentation and those post-mastectomy reconstructions that we were just talking about. So, we're seeing greater societal acceptance of, cosmetic surgeries. The implant materials are getting better. They're safer. They look more natural. And disposable incomes are rising. So all of that contributes to this dominance.
So breast implants are leading the pack in terms of, size. But there was another segment that I remember the report pointed to that's experiencing like really rapid growth.
Yeah, that's right. Dental implants. They're actually the fastest growing segment in this market. And this is fueled by a few things. There's a rising prevalence of tooth loss, which can happen due to aging, disease, injury. And then there's also this growing demand for aesthetic dentistry. People are, they want long lasting solutions. They want natural looking replacements for missing teeth. So, and then also innovations in the field like 3D printing for dental implant design and minimally invasive implantation techniques. That's also speeding up this growth.
Dental implants, that's pretty interesting. It kind of shows how implants address both like functional and aesthetic needs. Let's talk materials. What's the breakdown there?
Well, the polymer segment, it has the largest share of the market right now. And that's mostly because polymers like silicone gel, polyethylene, and polyurethane, they're used in a lot of different implants. Breast implants, facial implants for contouring, and even, soft tissue augmentations. These materials are flexible, they're durable, and they feel pretty natural, so that makes them a popular choice.
Polymers make sense. They're versatile. They've been around for a while. But there was another material segment that the report said was uh, was seeing some really fast growth too, right?
Yeah, that's the biological segment. And it's growing really fast because there's a demand for materials that are biocompatible, and that help with tissue regeneration. So this includes things like materials made from collagen or fat grafts where they actually use the patient's own fat, and then there's bioengineered tissues. These materials are often used with other materials in what they call hybrid procedures, and they're trying to get safer, more natural looking results.
That makes sense. Using the patient's own tissues. That's definitely a trend we're seeing across different areas of medicine. So let's talk gender. Who's using these aesthetic implants the most?
Well, currently the female segment is the largest, and that's mainly due to the high demand for, breast augmentation procedures, and then different body contouring treatments, and then the number of post-mastectomy breast reconstructions is also contributing to that.
Okay, that's probably what most people would expect. But is there any shift happening in terms of men engaging with these procedures and these implants?
Yeah, actually there is. The male segment is the fastest growing. And this is being fueled by, rising awareness and acceptance of male aesthetics. And then there's an increasing demand for body contouring implants, like, implants that enhance the jawline or pectoral muscles. And men are becoming more open to cosmetic procedures in general.
Wow. So men are the fastest growing segment. That's really interesting to see. Shows how things are changing. So where are all these procedures taking place? What is the report saying about the different end users?
Well, right now, specialty clinics, they hold the largest market share. And that makes sense, right? They're focused specifically on aesthetic enhancements, offering a lot of different personalized treatments, and they're usually using the most advanced technologies.
Specialty clinics make sense. But is there a segment that's growing really fast, like we saw with the product types and the genders?
Yeah, hospitals, they're actually the fastest growing segment when it comes to end users. And this is mainly because of the increasing number of reconstructive surgeries that we talked about. So that includes, post-mastectomy breast implant procedures, and then, some of the more complex facial reconstructions, maybe from trauma or congenital conditions. Hospitals have that advanced infrastructure. They've got the support teams, and they're collaborating more and more with skilled cosmetic surgeons.
So hospitals are becoming a really important place for these procedures, especially the ones that are more uh, reconstructive in nature. We've covered a lot of ground with this global overview. Let's zoom in on some specific regions now and see what's happening locally. Let's start with North America. You mentioned that has the largest market share right now.
Right. Yeah. So North America is leading with a market size of USD 5.41 billion in 2025, and they've got a key GR of 7.6%. Some of the key factors there are there's strong demand for cosmetic procedures. They have a really advanced healthcare system, really good facilities. They have good regulations overseeing the industry. And a lot of the major global implant manufacturers are actually located in North America. So we're seeing growth in breast augmentation, facial contouring, dental implants, and then also rising interest in those minimally invasive techniques, and then cosmetic surgery for men.
Okay, and you gave us that overall figure for North America, but can you break it down a little bit more by individual country?
Sure. So in 2025, the U.S. is projected to have a market size of USD 4.27 billion with a CAGR of 7.4%. Canada is looking at USD 0.65 billion with a slightly higher CAGR of 8.4%. And then Mexico is projected to be at USD 0.49 billion with a CAGR of 8.1%.
Okay, so the U.S. is really the dominant force, but Canada and Mexico are also showing some pretty good growth. What about Europe? What are some of the key trends and figures there?
So Europe's got a market of USD 4.24 billion in 2025 and a CAGR of 8.2%. Their growth is being driven by, growing awareness of aesthetic procedures, continuous technological advancements, and then there's also this trend of medical tourism within the region. People are, traveling to different countries for specialized treatments, and countries like Germany, the UK, France, Italy, they all have, really strong foundations in plastic and reconstructive surgery.
And can we get a quick snapshot of some of those key European markets in terms of size and growth?
Yeah, absolutely. So Germany is projected to have a market size of USD 0.84 billion with a KGR of 8.4%. The UK, USD 0.71 billion with a slightly higher AGR of 9%. France is estimated at USD 0.39 billion with a KGR of 7.4%. Italy at USD 0.36 billion and a 7.6% CAGR. And then Russia, which is a big market in Europe, they're projected at USD 0.66 billion with a KGR of 7.2%. We're also seeing increasing adoption of those advanced implant technologies like 3D printing and hybrid implants across Europe.
Okay, so some interesting variations in growth rates across those European economies. Now let's move on to Asia Pacific, the high growth region that you mentioned earlier. What's happening there?
So Asia Pacic's got that impressive 12% CGR and a market size of USD 3.51 billion in 2025. And this is really being driven by, rising disposable incomes across a lot of the economies in the region, a growing medical tourism sector, and then also, a gradually increasing acceptance of different cosmetic procedures. Countries like South Korea, China, Japan, India, they're all seeing big increases in demand.
And what are some of the specific market sizes and growth rates we're looking at there?
So South Korea is projected to have a market size of USD 0.42 billion with an 11.1% CAGR. China, which is a huge and rapidly evolving market, it's estimated at USD 1.47 billion with an 11.5% CAGR. Japan is projected at USD 0.48 billion with a 10.5% CAGR. And then India is showing some really strong growth with a projected market size of USD 0.35 billion and a very robust CAGR of 13.9%. South Korea, as you might know, is it's like a global hub for plastic surgery. And then we're also seeing the rise of local implant manufacturers and then increasing adoption of those minimally invasive techniques across the whole Asia Pacific region.
That double-digit growth in a lot of those Asian Pacific countries, that's really impressive, really shows the potential there. What about South America? What are the trends there?
South America, with a market size of USD 0.56 billion in 2025 and a CAGR of 9.9%, they have some significant growth opportunities. This is being supported by expanding healthcare infrastructure in a lot of the countries, rising incomes making procedures more accessible, and then also increasing medical tourism, especially in places like Brazil and Argentina.
And can you give us some specific market figures for those key South American markets?
Yeah. Brazil, they have, they're well known for their plastic surgery industry. They're projected to have a market size of USD 0.24 billion with a 10.5% CAGR. Argentina is estimated at USD 0.09 billion with a slightly higher CAGR of 10.8%. And in this region, we're seeing, high demand for breast implants, buttock implants, and dental implants.
So Brazil is definitely a major player down there. What about the Middle East? What's the outlook there?
The Middle East is also showing some really strong growth, CAGR of 10.5%, with a market size of USD 0.58 billion in 2025. And this is being fueled by, high demand. They have high levels of disposable income and a growing medical tourism sector, especially in countries like the UAE, Saudi Arabia, and Qatar.
And what are some of the specific market sizes and growth rates in those countries?
So the UAE is projected to have a market size of USD 0.12 billion with an 11% CAGR. Saudi Arabia USD 0.21 billion with a 10.8% CAGR, and then Qatar USD 0.05 billion with a 10% CAGR. Cities like Dubai and Riyadh are, they're becoming known for their high-quality surgeons and clinics.
So the Middle East is becoming a pretty significant player in this market as well. Finally, let's talk about Africa. What's the report saying about that continent?
So Africa has a smaller share of the global market, but they still have some significant potential. Their market size is projected to be USD 0.32 billion in 2025, with a CAGR of 9.5%. And this is being driven by increasing awareness of these procedures, gradual improvements in healthcare infrastructure, and rising medical tourism, especially in some of the more developed economies like South Africa and Nigeria.
And what are the projected market sizes and growth rates for those countries?
So South Africa is projected to have a market size of USD 0.11 billion with a 10.4% CAGR. Nigeria is at USD 0.03 billion with a 9.7% CAGR. And some of the factors driving that are, things like urbanization and a growing middle class.
It's really interesting to see how even those markets with smaller shares are still growing. So let's shift gears a little bit and talk about the companies that are operating in this space. What does the competitive landscape look like?
Yeah. So this market is very competitive. You've got big, well-established global players and then a bunch of smaller, more regional companies. And we're seeing a lot of new product launches, a lot of innovation, especially in those advanced materials, ergonomic designs, and personalized solutions.
So it's really a hotbed of innovation in this market. Are there any specific examples of recent innovations or product launches that the report mentions?
Yeah, there's a couple of interesting ones. So in December 2024, Straumann, they're a big player in dental implants. They introduced their BLX Pro dental implants. And these have a new surface technology that helps them integrate with the bone faster. They call it osseointegration. So it's basically a more secure and stable implant. And then there's FIT. It's a Korean company. They launched a service in February 2024 that uses medical image analysis and 3D printing to create custom implants for each patient.
Wow. So faster integration and truly custom designs. That's pretty cool. Now, are there any factors that the report mentions that might be holding back this growth?
Yeah, they do mention a couple of things. One is, the high costs. Aesthetic implants and the procedures can be expensive, and that can limit access for some people, especially in developing regions. And then there's always the risk of complications. Things like implant rupture, infection, the need for more surgeries, and that can make people hesitate to get these procedures.
Yeah, cost and potential complications. Those are definitely things to consider. Before we wrap up, are there any overarching trends that the report points to that might shape the future of this industry?
Yeah, there are a couple. We're seeing more and more use of fat grafting and hybrid techniques. So that's where they use the patient's own fat, either instead of a traditional implant or along with it. And then there's also this rising popularity of those minimally invasive and non-surgical aesthetic procedures. And that could actually lead to a lower demand for some of those more invasive implant procedures.
So moving towards more natural options and less invasive procedures, that's really interesting. Well, this has been a really fascinating look at the global aesthetic implant market as we head into 2025.
Absolutely. The main takeaway is that this market is, it's set for significant growth. There's a lot of different factors driving that demand for cosmetic procedures, technological advancements, and then just the overall economic development in a lot of regions.
Yeah, it's been a really insightful look at this report, and it leaves me and hopefully you, the listener, with a final thought. Considering all these advances in personalized implants like those 3D printed ones that we talked about, and then the influence of social media, how might our idea of ideal aesthetics change over the next decade? And if these highly customized and maybe permanent modifications become more common, what are the bigger implications of that? I think it's definitely something to think about. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.